Welcome back in, everybody. Another edition here of the Auburn Undercover podcast on the 24/7 Sports Network. My name is Nathan King, joined here by our publisher, Ronnie Sanders. Another edition here of the Jay Jacobs Show with former Auburn Athletic Director Jay Jacobs, kind enough to join us as always. As Jay putting a bow here on what's been a super fun last month for this Auburn basketball team. Of course, did not end the way that they wanted it to. Obviously, they knew they were 80 minutes from a national championship, but getting this team back to the Final Four was a tremendous accomplishment. And Jay, I know you were there in San Antonio, as was I, and talk about what you saw over the weekend. From we were talking about before we got rolling. Man, it was a lot of Auburn fans in town, and again, not the way that they wanted to see the season end, but I think a lot of people have been able to, in hindsight, the last couple days, look back and reflect on what's been such a tremendous season.
The Auburn family showed up, didn't they, Nathan?
Yep.
Good gracious. I was, me and my family were walking the streets on Sunday looking at, shopping at some of these pop-up tents that sell the NCAA gear. And one of the gentlemen there that owns a couple of those, he said the Auburn fans outbought everybody else 3-1. And, I would say that in the arena on Saturday evening, and I'd say it was probably 60-40 or 75-25 Auburn fans, wouldn't you? It was.
Yeah, definitely more than Florida. Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody showed up. It was really great for those. It was really great for the Auburn family, really great for those players to see that. And, to get to where they did is really just wonderful for Auburn. Certainly, we all wish we could have won the whole thing. That's what you play for, is to win national championships. But, Bruce continues to build a foundation to get us to the Final Four. And it's hard to do. And guys, I don't know if there's ever been a Final Four. Well, there's only been one other. This is only the second time that all four number one seeds made it to the Final Four. I don't know if there's ever been a Final Four where one of the teams in the Final Four had already played three of the other four teams. Auburn had played all three of those teams. And so that was unique in itself. But great atmosphere, great play by Auburn. Fun last couple of months, being number one of the nation, number one seed. Like everybody says, the cliche, we came up a little bit short, but boy, it wasn't because of lack of effort and want to. Those guys laid it all on the line, and the Auburn family showed up. And boy, it was a lot of fun in that big football stadium Saturday night.
It certainly was. I mean, I the thing that struck me is that everybody was playing hard, both teams, and that's the way you want it. I mean, it was it was interesting last night. You could tell everybody had some nerves coming out, but it was the committee, I think, did a really good job outside of maybe North Carolina getting in. I think they did a pretty good job, would be my opinion.
They did. When all four number ones make it to the Final Four, you have to applaud them for. You may not have liked the process, but the end result was exactly what the whole nation thought was the four top teams in the nation. So it worked out great.
Yeah, and I think it was, maybe a bit of a bad luck for Auburn that this was the type of season it was where all number one seeds made it. Like, not that it would have been easy to beat anybody else, but you're Auburn and you get to the national championship stage and you've got to go beat two of the other very best teams. Usually it's not like that. Usually obviously you're beating somebody who's hot, you're beating somebody who's on a run, but you don't have to beat the Ken Palm number one, number two, team. You don't have to beat the number 3 overall seed, or in Florida was the number 4 overall seed. So, I mean, Bruce Pearl said it leading up to this thing. He was like, whoever wins the championship is going to be potentially the most worthy national champion ever, because you were going to have to beat some tremendous teams. And so, yeah, I mean, it was a really tough hill for them to climb. And obviously Florida comes out on top. And I just, I thought, both of you guys, I'm sure, saw the same thing. Like, I think it counts this time of year to have enough ways to beat you. Like, Florida had so much depth and so many good players, but last night it was their defense that won it for them. And for all the excitement of somebody like Walter Clayton, like, they have been a top 10 defense all season. And so I think that ended up proving itself to be true, as well as Houston getting to that point. Like, they beat Duke with defense. They held them to only one shot over the last 10.5 minutes of that game. And so, yeah, super exciting finish to the season. Obviously, Auburn wishes they could have at least made it to the title game, but nothing to hang their heads about. They're going to hang a bunch of banners next season, and I think Janai Broome has a pretty good case to be the best player to ever put on an Auburn jersey for my money.
He certainly played well, and the SEC was all talk for the last 3 months about how hard the SEC is. Well, it's obvious we've got an SEC national champion now. And wouldn't it have been fun to have had us in Florida in different brackets and both of us played last night? But I'm sure that would have been the dismay of a lot of people. But just goes to show this league. And I don't think Florida was never number one in the nation throughout the year, were they? I know that Tennessee toyed with it for a few weeks, right? And then, certainly we had it for the majority of the season. But anyway, just a great team. And as you said, Nathan, they beat us with offense on Saturday night, not defense necessarily. But anyway, they played well and they won the game, and then they won the national championship. Congratulations to them. And I'm just really proud of where the Auburn basketball team is. And when you have sports, our goal was always to be at everything school. And so when you have sports that are good, that compete for SEC championships, no matter what the sport is, you're going to have a chance to compete for a national championship if you compete for an SEC championship in this league. It doesn't matter if it's softball, gymnastics, equestrian, whatever it may be, golf, whatever it may be. If you can compete for an SEC championship, you can compete for a national championship. And that was the entire goal, and it continues to be for Auburn, is that we're going to be at everything school. We're not going to be a football school. We're going to be a basketball school. We're going to be a volleyball school. We're going to be a soccer, all those sports. And all that just increases the brand and the brand awareness. And this basketball team going out to San Antonio, it was like in 2010 and 2013 when we went to the West Coast. 2010 in football went to Phoenix, and then 2013 went to the Rose Bowl. There's a lot of people in the country that became aware of Auburn. And applications go up. People see the culture and how we perform and the Auburn brand and what the Auburn creed means to people. And we actually live that out. Just talk to our players after a game, watch an interview that, maybe you've even conducted, and you'll see that Auburn culture and that Auburn creed come through. And it's a different lifestyle here, and it's a special one, and it's not for everybody. And we don't want everybody. We want those special people that, a land grant institution and having a spirit that's not afraid and loving mankind is loving your neighbor is important to you. But great run by Bruce and those guys. And now here we go, baseball, softball, and let's keep rolling in gymnastics and tennis and golf. And, the golf team won a national championship last year. So let's see if we can repeat that again. I'm going to tell you something, guys. I don't want to get off on a tangent here. But can you imagine what you have to do to win a national championship in golf? All the rounds you have to play in a matter of just a few days. That's challenging. But Nick and his guys did it, and we're looking for Melissa to do the same thing with the ladies. So anyway, fun time at Auburn the last couple of months.
I know it's a little bit off topic, but talk a little bit about Dr. Roberts and how much alignment there is now compared to sometimes in the past. I know that, there's been talk before, but I mean, Dr. Roberts, it seems to me that everybody's kind of on the same page, pulling in the same direction, and that ought to help all sports.
Oh, it does. Now, I'm not involved in it. I've known Chris since he was, here on campus and became dean of engineering, and just a great guy. And, he shows up at everything. And he's always available to people. He's just he didn't graduate from Auburn. He graduated from Notre Dame, but boy, he has that Auburn spirit about him, which I'm sure that Notre Dame has that same spirit. But that alignment is so important in any, and I'm going to refer to it as a business. I know some people don't like that, but when you look at the entire institution, all the different, schools and colleges and athletics and the extracurricular activities and the outreach and all the different things that we do, it is a big business and impacts a lot of people. And when you have a leader like him, like Chris Roberts, that has a vision and has the passion and has the personality to embrace all of that and help move people along, it just creates tremendous advantages for you, particularly in athletics. I wouldn't really know. I'm sure that it permeates and does the same on the academic side, but in athletics, it makes a world of difference when you can be in alignment and know that you need to do this to be successful. You need to do this to be able to recruit certain student athletes. It gives you a chance. Without it, you hardly stand a chance. But with it, you can compete with anyone.
Nathan?
Yeah, I wanted to kind of touch on something around that subject, around the administrative subject. Obviously, the House settlement was something that came into focus this week. We're about to enter just in a few months now, right? We're about to enter into a completely different sphere of college athletics. And, Jay, I'm sure from like an administrative headspace, it's just sort of mind numbing, like all the factors that are about to come into play. But obviously it's something that athletic departments have been preparing for a little while. Talk to us a little bit, Jay, about the settlement, the House settlement this week, and what that's going to mean moving into the next few months of a new landscape of college athletics.
People, there are varying opinions on name, image, and likeness and student athletes receiving money for that. It's just too bad. That's just where we are. So you don't have to like it, but everybody just needs to get on board. That's where we are. That's a time in which we things have changed. The paradigm has shifted, and compensating student athletes is the way that things are going to be done moving forward. How that happens has a lot to do with Judge Wilkins in the House settlement. And yesterday, April the 7th, was this intangible line in the sand, so to speak, that, prior to April the 7th, not everybody, but most institutions, athletics departments, collectives, were trying to do as much as they could to get money promised and contracts signed to student athletes before it goes into effect, before she rules completely on the case. Because once she does, then everything has to go through the athletics department. And then it becomes a percentage of what the athletics department would allow to each sport. Okay. And generally what you hear is that, very general terms now, guys, is that, so it's going to be a little over $20 million, and, football will get like 14, and then basketball will get like 3, and the Olympic sports will get 3. But that is not cut and dry. That's just some numbers that different people are suggesting. How that shakes out on each campus is completely up to the athletics director and the president and the head coaches of those sports. But everybody's been gearing up, trying to get these contracts in place by April the 7th, so that her ruling would not impact what they've already promised these student athletes. But starting this summer, once she rules, yesterday she pushed back on a couple of things. She pushed back on, and the plaintiffs feel like they can clear this up pretty easily. She pushed back on it being 10 years. Her comment was, what I read was that, we're making rules about student athletes that aren't even in college yet. So clarify that for me. Another thing is that she would like to see, when it comes to roster limits, she made the comment that she'd like to see that come in over time, not be so progressive and say, have a deadline and say, okay, you have to have this many student athletes on your team and you have to cut people. From what her sentiment seems to be, from my opinion, is that, let's don't cut anybody. Let's take some time and get that roster limit like it should be. Let's don't let some young student that is on one of your teams just all of a sudden tomorrow wake up and say you're no longer on the team. So she wanted some clarity on that. And then another thing that maybe one of the most important things to some of us is, how are you going to determine the value of a student athlete from campus to campus? Because anything that a student athlete gets over $600 has to go through the athletics department, and it has to be justified as to why you're getting $600, $6,000, or $60,000 for something. And, some people could argue that, the value for doing a commercial in Auburn, Alabama has a certain value, and doing it in Gainesville, Florida could have a completely different value. So what I understood her to say was she pushed back on that a little bit. But as I said, I think, Nathan and Ronnie, I think it's going to come to a close sooner than later. And we just have to get to this point where everybody quits suing the NCAA, so we can do our best to provide this great opportunity for some students that wouldn't have an opportunity to go to college without athletics. But even more importantly than that, the values that college athletics teaches. I just think that our world needs it. The Auburn Creed is part of that, and that's what we believe in. So those are just some of the things. So she didn't slam the gavel down and say this is it yesterday. I think she said I'd like to hear something back in a week or so. So we'll wait and see how that goes. But happy to talk more about that, Nathan, or anything that you guys have to add to that.
How do you see these contracts, these NIL contracts playing out with players as far as length and that sort of thing?
Well, the way the contracts are work now for collectives is that, just so that nobody misunderstands, is that generally you get paid in arrears. So some people I've heard, neighbors and friends say, well, you promised a guy so many $1,000s, he could take the money and leave. Well, that's not the way the contracts are written. You have to perform the service, whatever the NIL, whatever the contract says, whether that's making appearances, doing commercials, signing balls, whatever it may be, then you get paid after the fact. So there may be some instances of some institutions not writing contracts that way. That would be very smart. It's just like any contract that any of us would write with a person. They have to perform their duties before they get paid. So as far as the terms go, I would imagine that coaches probably want the same flexibility that student athletes do. Is that, okay, you come in here, we'll sign you for a year, because sometimes you find out the student athletes don't want to be there, and sometimes you don't want them there. So to sign a 4-year contract would be challenging, but I'm sure there'll be schools that'll do it. That'll do that because they find it in their best interest. But I think that I don't know that there'll be a uniform contract for everybody unless we get to collective bargaining.
What are your feelings on a place like UNLV, who is, they're in the news last year about not being able to meet NIL obligations, and now you got Dan Mullen. They can't seem to find the money to pay him what the contract was either. So talk a little bit about that and how schools like UNLV, when you have NIL issues and you can't meet those obligations, how does that affect things?
It affects them, Ronnie, because you and I are sitting here talking about UNLV can't do what they promised to do. That's not good for anybody if that's the case. So, I also thought that you can't, that becomes negative actions impact what you can do moving forward, whether it's with this show, a restaurant, a hotel, any business, that if you don't treat people like you say you're going to treat them, it impacts your customers and you lose customers. And so that would be challenging to get over, but you'll have a chance to get over it if you can do what you say you're going to do. One thing where I thought you may be headed, Ronnie, was, some schools that don't have football, they're going to have more money to spend on basketball because they don't have to give a cut. And so there's conversations about that going on right now amongst some coaches, is that, wait a minute now, XYZ University doesn't even have football, or they're predominantly basketball. So most of their money, so they're always going to have, a better team in basketball. Well, you know what? That's just, the wonderful thing about that is that's the institutional decision, is that if you have multiple sports you're trying to do, to compete with, well, then you divide the money up appropriately. But if you just want to be really good in one, then you dump all your money in the other. So, but now more than ever, because we know the world is flat, now more than ever, anything that you do from a negative standpoint, the whole world finds out. And sometimes when you don't do anything negative, people say it was negative, and you're having to dig your way out of that. So if you can just make sure that your actions line up with your culture, and that you are who you say you are, you're going to be fine. But those negative things happen.
Jay, coming up this weekend is, well, it is A-Day still, but it looks a lot different. I kind of wanted your thoughts on what seems to be a widespread change in spring games. I mean, it all makes a lot of sense why you don't just basically want to put your players, on display right before. I mean, it's literally right before the portal opens. Like Auburn's in particular is the Saturday before the transfer portal opens. And it seems like this was almost really the last 2 years, like unanimously, most programs and most coaches understand, or they're coming to the conclusion that they don't want to do a traditional spring game anymore. I guess kind of what are your thoughts on the potentially like the death of modern spring games as we know it? But in Auburn's instance, I think there's a lot of positives because like now it's free. It is what the coach wants ultimately. And I think at the end of the day, like if it's what the head coach wants, it's probably the number one thing you should do.
Well, just a little history here is that when Coach Dye came to Auburn, I guess it was may have been our first A-Day, which was in spring of '81. We played it at night. We did it at night, and I think we had close to 50,000 people come. It was just an exciting time for Auburn football. So, the A-Day was, one thing that a lot of us thought about the spring game was getting people, all right, so you've been out of fall routine for a few months now. And so now let's get you excited because our ticket renewals are out there. So let's get you on campus, meet the players, watch the team, and get you excited about the fall because we're just a few months away. But for, that had sort of become waning anyway before NIL, is that, I guess it was Colorado and Syracuse were petitioned the NCAA about, can they just play a scrimmage? Can they play each other? And you guys probably remember in high school, that's what we did. We had a jamboree, and 6 or 8 teams would show up and you'd play a quarter each, and the place was packed. In Jacksonville, Florida, the Gator Bowl was packed, but it made it fun. But then coaches, because of just how competitive everybody is, coaches started dumbing down their spring games. They wouldn't show you very much. They sort of became boring to us as fans, and it was hot. But then we started, adding in the autograph session and doing different things because you want your fans to be able to relate to the student athletes, be able to, say hello to them, get their autograph so they can relate to them, so they'll, support them and have this connection. But with the transfer portal, you got a guy that maybe that came into Auburn this past fall, and he's gained 20 pounds. He's faster and he's bigger. And then you put him out there and you showcase him in April. I mean, there's no telling how many bidders would come. So I understand it. So I think that piece, along with the piece of, I don't want to show Baylor what we're running this spring, I think all that adds together. And that, what? Hold on a minute. Let's don't do all this. But what I find interesting, though, is that you can go to spring practice for the NFL all year long, can't you? You can go down there and watch them and they compete. But anyway, if we could find a way, and I think that Auburn and some other schools have found the way to thread that needle, is to have something on campus, get people back on campus. It's a great opportunity for the university to recruit students, not just student athletes, but recruit students, have them on campus, see Auburn. It's amazing, guys. Last week, I was visiting with a friend of mine, and a guy was with him from New Jersey, and they passed through Auburn and walked the campus. And now his son's coming to Auburn just because he was on campus. And so I think there's a stat that like 60% of the people that come on Auburn's campus apply for Auburn. I'll get that for us for next time. But there's a fact that if we get them on campus, there's a chance they're going to come to campus and come up, apply to Auburn. Now, holy smoke, getting in looks like it's more challenging than it's ever been. I sure am glad they didn't have the academic standards when me and some of my buddies were coming through. But
same here.
But it is still good. It is good that you're competitive. It is good that we're maintaining that culture, and it starts with Dr. Roberts and our coaches and the deans on campus and the Auburn family. Holding everybody accountable to the Auburn creed. So fun time. But to your point, Nathan, I can see why they don't want to play. I can see why they don't want to show anything. And I think that's going to. I think that next year it'll be interesting to see what the rule changes are from the football committee between now and next year.
We mentioned Colorado and Syracuse want to play a spring scrimmage. What are your thoughts on that? I mean,
I like it.
I do too.
I like it. I like the idea. I mean, my question would be, and it's interesting because Dr. Gouge, former president at Auburn, talked to me about that 10 years ago. He said, why don't we, the question always is okay, so if, let's just say, let's use Colorado, okay? So if we have a spring game with Colorado, they going to come here, we going there. And then so how do you get your fans to come on your campus if you can just play one spring game? Where are you going to play it? Because having them on campus is and having a day of football recruiting and other sports recruiting on that weekend is important. So, but I think those are things that could be worked out. I think it'd be fun. It certainly would be a lot better than a boring game where they're not showing you anything. But there's probably something in between, guys, that those guys will think of. But I love the idea though, Ronnie, of that. I think that's cool. Not a whole game, not necessarily a whole game. Just play a quarter or two, and maybe you script it. Where Auburn's offense is going to be against their defense for 10 plays, and you flip it, and I don't know, just to make it fun for the fans. It'd be fun for the players too. They've been beating on each other for 15 days.
Yeah.
Or whatever the rules are these days, it may not be that, but make it fun for them.
Yeah, I think Freeze in particular, I think has embraced or wants to embrace a lot of like NFL style models in terms of off-season preparation. Like in terms of just the spring too, they didn't even start until late. They're not even going to use all 15 of their days because he wanted to focus more on film room, on studying, on stuff that is not on the field. Because like you said, Jay, like he just didn't. There's so you get out there and you're beating up on each other, and the way Freeze has kind of looked at it too, and he's an advocate for like OTAs in the summer because, and I get it. Like I mean, recently a college student, like you just don't remember that much from like going from the spring to the fall. Like I think that's kind of where they're at. Is like it'd be more important to do stuff closer to the season. So I'll be interested to see if that changes in the future as well. Freeze seemed to indicate there's a lot of coaches that think that way and would rather see spring practice just be install, walk through, film room, and not get out there and just beat up on each other because like we're still 6 months from the season. There's no point to do that. And this is interesting. Something he brought up, Jay, is like, you can't expect guys to not have end of season procedures. Like in December, January, you know how many guys do cleanup stuff? Like it's so many guys on the roster, and then you're asking them to be ready 2 months later. It's just impossible. Right. Auburn's got 15 guys right now, 14, 15 guys that are limited because it's like, well, I need to have that shoulder cleanup. Well, I need to have my knee worked on a little bit. And so I don't know. I just wonder between that and the spring game, I think spring practices over the next few years are really in store for a lot of changes.
I think you're right. And, too, guys, we're such creatures of habit. The game has changed too. We're not 30 years ago running the wishbone. You got out physical people. Everybody's zone blocking, playing up high. And I'm not saying they're any less tough or anything, even though I think they are. It's just it's just a different game now. And the thing I was thinking about while you were talking about that, Nathan, was that if you did do a spring game and you played a school, you could go one Saturday, you could do it at their place, the next Saturday do it at yours, so everybody gets a spring game. But I agree. I think it's changing, and I think it's changing rapidly, and I think it's all for the good.
Well, it has certainly continued to build interest in college football. I don't think that anybody could have foreseen what has transpired over the past few years. I know this. We weren't going to talk about this, but I'm going to throw it in anyway. I guess it's different publications publish the perceived value. I guess I'm not sure how they calculate it of all the different programs around the SEC, and some of these brands are worth $1 billion, or right at it. You mentioned it being in big business earlier. That's pretty big business.
That is. And people that, they're publishing those values because people are talking about, do we need equity partners in this? And, to sustain this model, because everybody wants you to win. We do. We want our school. We want them to win at everything. And we want our student athletes or our children that are competing in sports. We want them to have every advantage they possibly can. And when you start taking your revenue, and it's a lot of money, don't misunderstand me. Athletics departments, they generate a lot of money, but they spend a lot of money because what it costs to provide academic counseling, sports medicine, nutrition, mental health, transportation, food, all those things cost. And so you begin to look at, is there an equity partner here that we should partner with to get get financially stable or better. So I think all those things are on the table. I really do. And it'll be interesting to see, the market will determine where it ends up. NIL was a good idea until all of us fans figured out we could compete. We could have a competitive advantage if we just paid players to sign 100 footballs, paid them $1,000 or something. NIL was a good idea. And there's some student athletes, particularly in Olympic sports, that are taking complete advantage of it the way that NIL was intended to be. But we're so competitive, we found loopholes in it. So now we're in a court case trying to figure out how people can quit suing us so they can make money. And so the market will determine it all. And we are the market. Us fans, we're the market. We're the ones going to determine what we're willing to do to see what we think is what we determine individually and as a group of success. That's where we'll end up. Just like where we ended up right now with collectives. So fun time. Hey, the great thing about it is, guys, is that those 18 to 23-year-olds, they still love to compete. They still love to wear your school colors until somebody else decides to pay them more. They'll change their colors real quick. But the same thing is happening in society, not just student athletes. People that are in a certain demographic, they would rather, I don't know if many people will have a 30-year career at one place or a 25-year career or a 20-year career at one place, because they have found that during COVID and other times, there's more mobility from working from home. There's more independence. They can work here. They can work there. They don't mind picking up and moving. And you know what? I'm not going to stay here for 5 years and get a 20% raise when I can be here for 1 year in another institution or another business is going to give me a 10% raise, and I can bounce right now and get that. So the student athletes to a large degree are reflective of what that population is right now. We're a transactional population right now. Netflix, everything that we do is transactional. We want it instantly. And the student athletes are just a sample of that. That's all.
Before we wrap up, you mentioned private equity in college athletics. Talk a little bit about that and how that is bad and good.
I didn't hear what you said when you mentioned what?
Private equity.
Oh, private equity. I don't know. The way, that I look at it is that, it's basically a loan against your assets. You're going to be guaranteed return on your funds based on, ticket sales and revenue generation and revenue distribution from your conference or television packages, bowl packages. I just don't know what that looks like to us as fans on the other side of that. So if XYZ private equity decides to give a university so many dollars. Do we ever even notice that? Or is it everything now is about XYZ equity company? Does it completely take away, and does that culture overtake your own campus culture? So I don't even know how all that would work from a perception standpoint and how it actually works day to day. I understand the financial piece of it. And I can understand how that would be very attractive to universities and athletics departments. I just don't know what the repercussions of that are, down the road with someone else owning your rights. But we do it a little bit to a degree with multimedia now, just a little bit. We'll sell our rights to a multimedia company, and they'll give us a bonus. They'll go out and sell all of our advertising, but we do have some rights there. We do have some. No, we're not going to advertise this particular product on our campus, or we're not going to be part of that. Or we'll welcome that. So you do have some of this. It's just like the NIL. Contracts make good neighbors. They build good fences. You just got to have good contracts when you do it. You got to honor the contracts. Back to your question about institutions not honoring, or perception maybe they didn't honor their NIL contract. That's a problem. And so honor your contracts. Do what you think's right, and let's just don't lose sight of what college athletics means to so many people. Starting with the student athletes, the values it adds. And a lot of people probably will, say that's not really, everybody's so focused on the money that sometimes they lose sight of, but I met with two of our former football players last week. They're starting a business, and they met with a group of people just getting their advice. And you're talking about people you would be proud of. You'd be proud to have these guys marry your daughter and be in business with them. College athletics, it instills some values that it's very hard to get other places. So we can't lose track of that.
Well, Jay, thank you so much for joining us as always. Long, kind of wide-ranging conversation today that I really enjoyed, and looking forward to getting into it more in the football and basketball offseason.
We do too. We'll see what A-Day looks like this Saturday, and we'll know what it's going to look like. We'll compare it to what it looks like in the future in a couple of years.
Yep, it'll definitely be interesting.
But last but not least, congratulations to Bruce and that basketball team. They've done a tremendous job here at Auburn, and we certainly are proud of him. He's just a great ambassador for Auburn athletics and student athletes. And boy, he's a blessing, and this team has been a blessing. And we have a lot of coaches like that on this campus, and just a real fortunate to be able to live in this community and see all that and be a part of that. Y'all take care. Thanks for having me. God bless and War Eagle.